Hello, and welcome back to plantcare.club, where we care about your plants. My name is Fred.
My name is Maddie.
And on this show, we will talk about your plants. We will do product reviews, talk about specific products, that kind of a thing, and then we answer your questions. So, if you have any questions that come up while listening to the show today, head over to plantcare.club, fill out our question form, and you can get in touch with us from there. We'll either send you an email back or answer your question on the show. So the goal for today, who are we? We are brother and sister. We grew up on a greenhouse farm, and I have been working with the farm for about 6 years since I finished school. The farm grows everything from poinsettias, garden mums, spring annuals. We ship them across Canada and the United States. And then we have another location in Florida where we grow palms, ferns, houseplants, all of those kind of things, sell them to the same type of customers. Now, Maddie, why are you here?
I'm here, so as Fred mentioned, sister, but I've grown up on the greenhouse farm, so I have some kind of like knowledge about plants, but I'm not a green thumb. I think my family would be the first people to say that I'm not a green thumb, so I'm here to ask the questions to kind of bring Fred's expert mode answers down to like a term where everybody can understand. That's my goal of being here.
Yeah, and that's the whole goal of the show.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
to take the information that we have in the greenhouse and at a nursery and distill it down to say, hey, here's what you could do in your own home to make your own plants grow better, look better, be better, whatever it is. Okay, so the goal for today we wanted to be a little bit more personable. Is personable a word?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I feel like we wanted to be more candid and like down to earth, where it's like, hey, you know what? I just mentioned I'm not a green thumb, but just to be like, guys, we're not perfect with our plants either. So here's some plants that thrive in some environments that we've had, and here's some plants that have been okay, and here's some plants that have been doing amazing, and here's why we think that that's been like that, so you can try them out too.
Yeah, we racked our brains to think of plants that we've tried in our respective homes. So we've got a couple of places to pick from and said, okay, here's what's done well, here's what's done okay, and then here's what's really not looked so great, and we had to either get rid of or move on from. Now, some of these lists are a bit longer, and be aware that it's not like we had to buy all of these plants. The lists are long because we are the test case. You know, if I bring in the first time we brought in ficus or the first time we brought in some other type of plant, I want to bring it into my own home at the same time as selling it somewhere else to see, okay, how do I take care of it here? What do we do? How does it do in our environment? And then that's how you can begin to create some kind of tips for others on how to take care of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because we anticipate we're going to get questions about it, and we kind of want to know ourselves how to take care of them. But it's also a better way for us to know how to take care of them in the greenhouse as well.
Yes, basically. Exactly.
Yeah.
And what the homeowner should expect too. So
yeah, exactly.
Today we're going to do just indoor houseplants, because this should be coming at you in sometime in March. And then in the summer, we might do outdoor plants. That's kind of the thought. Maybe we could do something there to talk about outdoor items. What's gone well, what hasn't gone well.
Yeah.
Relatively.
Yep.
Okay, great. So first thing I want to talk about are the two different locations and what the environment is like. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with you, Maddie.
Yep.
What is the environment kind of like for the plants that you have there?
Yeah, so I have plants in my room at home, and basically there's some lighting in there, but where my plants are located, it doesn't get direct sunlight, so it's definitely indirect sunlight. Room is room temperature. It's not super hot. Upstairs, I would say it's actually maybe a little bit on the cooler side, but I do think I naturally, I find it more cold, but so it's not super warm, not direct sunlight, and not a huge space. So I tend to get plants that grow up or that are just smaller in nature.
Yeah, you're on the southwest side. Yeah. So you have two walls. So you have one that is on the south side of the house, one that's on the west side. So you'll get a bit better sunlight.
Yeah.
The temperature is probably like 19, 20 degrees Celsius, somewhere in there. But the ductwork isn't awesome in the house, so it's not like you get a ton of warm air in that spot. It could be a little bit cooler
Yeah.
relative to others. Now, another thing to think of is we're in Canada, so in the summer there can be some more humidity. Closer to the Great Lakes, we do get a decent amount of humidity
yeah.
here in the summer.
Yeah.
But then in the winter, it becomes very dry, like super dry air with no humidity in it at all.
No, but we get wet winds. That's the difference too. So we do get dry air, and it's really cold. It gets
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cold.
Yeah. So inside of your house, the humidity levels are going to really increase if you don't have a lot of air conditioning or you're trying to scale that back.
Yeah.
It could really increase in the summer and then decrease in the winter.
Yeah.
Which I bring that up because in the winter, that's not what a lot of houseplants are going to like. They're not going to love the low humidity levels.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what about watering? Like, when are you watering? How diligent are you? Be honest. Don't lie.
I'm not good with watering my plants. No, definitely. I will be the first one to say that. If I put it in my calendar and I do it like for my plants because they're not getting direct sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
I'm watering. Well, you're going to find out what my plants are in there anyways, but I'm watering maybe like once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, but I'm really just feeling it out. Like I'm seeing how heavy my plants are.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
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 Do you think that there's ever like, you know what, you're not going away for weeks on end. Like it's not like you're away for 2 weeks at a time.
No.
Maximum is really 1 week.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that it's not like they're going 2 weeks without anything, right?
No, and I've never, even if I have been gone, I mean, they've been taken care of, but they didn't need to be watered anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like I come back and my plants have always, most of the time, been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, at our house, the plants are not always the best cared for because, as you can imagine, at the greenhouse all day, there's plants there. Coming home, it's not my first thought is, hey, when do I go ahead and water a lot of these? And not only that, but like, I like to leave it up to my wife, Monica, to say, hey, see what you can do, like see what she ends up putting them through. I kind of watch from a distance and see, okay, maybe this is what like the average plant owner that's bringing some of these plants home, maybe this is what they're doing.
Yeah, that's right? True. Okay, I wasn't sure where you were going with that at first, but now I got you.
Yeah, like if she remembers and she's doing it more diligently and then forgets to water for a week or so, like I want to see what that plant's gonna do.
Yeah.
In order to tell others, like, hey, here's how it reacts in these different scenarios. Another thing, so our house is usually pretty warm, especially in the winter. Up until now, in the summer it's been pretty warm as well. So like it will get sometimes like 25 Celsius. It can get just super warm. We have a wood stove, which is really it can give a lot of heat, but it can give some dry heat to the house.
Yeah.
So generally lower humidity. As far as watering goes, it will water probably once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just depending on how often it's remembered, usually on like a Saturday. Mm-hmm. Now we do have well water and it is like purified, it's cleaned, it's that kind of a thing. But I think that well water does make a difference.
I think so too.
And you guys are on the
same
No,
thing.
No, you're not. You guys have water brought in.
Oh, but we're well water most of the time. We bring water in when it's not full.
Yes, so it would be a combination of the two.
It's a little bit of both, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not fully well water all the time.
Yeah.
And the point of having that well water is there's so many minerals you can get out of it before, instead of having to fertilize so much, like the soil can still have a decent amount of nutrients in it.
Yeah.
Right? Without having to add direct fertilizer. Okay, so any other key attributes? Oh, fertilizer, we don't really fertilize in neither of our locations.
No,
in situations, neither.
Not super often. If we notice that there's an issue, we might fertilize or do something like that, but we don't tend to fertilize that often.
There are some situations, like, for example, Ficus lyrata, once every maybe quarter or half a year, somewhere in there, whenever we're using fungicides in the greenhouse, and I remember, I'll say, oh, 1 second, I need to fill up some, a liter for every Ficus lyrata that we have in either your house or our house. And I just fill up a bunch of we usually use peanut butter jars. I'll fill up a 1 liter peanut butter jar, give 2 or 3 to you. I'll take a couple home
Yeah.
and then just apply it to all the plants. That way they've got some fungicide preventative at that point.
Just in case. Yeah.
But outside of that, I really don't think that there's much fertilizer we use on indoor plants.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, we've split this up into 3 categories: plants that have done well, plants that are surviving, they're just there, and then plants that have like just not done well.
Okay, let's start with the ones that aren't doing well. Let's end on a high note.
Okay, that's a great idea.
We'll start low and we'll
And I'm going to try to look them up as if you are watching online or on YouTube. I will try to look them up at the same time. That way, if you don't know what the plant is called or what it looks like, I'll show you here.
Okay, first plant for sure is poinsettia.
Okay.
Yep. So I had a poinsettia over Christmas, and I don't know. I think most of the part for me is that it doesn't get enough sunlight. It's very indirect sunlight, and it can be shadowed most of the day. And I did water it, but I may have given it too much at one point. It just started to didn't look so pretty by the end of it. Did you get to see it before I threw it out?
No.
Oh, actually the tips of my leaves were going black.
Okay.
So yeah, that poinsettia. I've never had good luck with poinsettias, to be honest. And I'm lucky because I'm not buying a poinsettia. I'm getting it from the greenhouse, obviously. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'll get another one next year. But for someone that's buying a poinsettia, it can be like, oh, I just got this poinsettia, or it was just a gift, and I just got it 2 weeks ago, but they're hard to take care of.
Yeah, but generally, like if you're talking about a 6-inch poinsettia, depending on where you are, you're gonna get it like Canadian. You're gonna get it for $8 to $10 Canadian. True. And most people with a poinsettia, they go into the Christmas season knowing like this is going in the garbage in a few weeks.
That is true. And I think a big part of it too is, and we've talked about this before, is the shock that a poinsettia goes through. I always forget this too. I might not think that walking from the greenhouse to the house is going to make that much of a difference, but if it's cold outside, but it really does. Like that little bit of shock on that plant does make a difference.
Yeah, and with poinsettias, I think they're the most drastic of a change in environments.
Yeah.
Like you go from one environment in the greenhouse where it's consistently warm, humid, it's getting fertilizer, it's getting the right level of sunlight, it's getting everything, like it has this perfect situation that it's living in the greenhouse. And then it goes to your home where it's getting a lot less sunlight, definitely less like indirect sunlight, probably through, reflected off of somewhere else. If it's staying inside of a cover, then the roots aren't breathing as well. Like no fertilizer, all of those different pieces just lead to a Yeah.
And having it in that cover too, I find that like if you're watering it, that water will stay in the cover if it starts to bleed through, if it starts to go through, and then it's just sitting in that wet. And we know that they don't like their roots wet, they don't like their feet wet, so then that can kind of add to it too.
Okay, next one.
Yeah.
We gotta keep moving.
Okay, you do your next one.
No?
Yeah, you do.
You do all yours.
No, I the one thing that I kill the most is poinsettias.
Okay, well I also had poinsettias. I have a 432 Mascane, so they didn't do very well. Just looking it up here, 432 Mascane. So the 432 stands for the number in front stands for the number of feet that stalk actually comes in. So when it's 432, you have one that comes in 4 feet high, 3 feet high, 2 feet high. Gives a different height, different size, different levels to the plant, and it didn't do well, I think, because it lost a bunch of its variegation because we didn't have as much sunlight as it had hoped for.
In your house, right?
In our room that it was in. And B, it was really neglected for a while. Like it was not watered for probably a month and a half. It was just forgotten about for a while, and then it was given some water, not given some water. It's just been on life support for a long time, and really just I'm ready to say goodbye. Monica doesn't want to give up just yet.
What time of the year was it when like it started to go downhill? Was it like in the summer where there's more sunlight, or
probably the winter?
In the winter.
It was the first winter it went through. This is its second winter.
Yeah.
I think so.
And commonly with these tropicals like a Mascane, the winter it's expected to lose some leaves, but you still have to care for it. So if like it is kind of starting to die.
A Mascane is not as hard to take care of. This was a caretaker error.
Oh, it's just neglect.
That's what this they're relatively more bulletproof. They're not a very hard plant to take care of. So this was a neglect issue here. They just kind of went brown, like the tips went brown. Yeah, some problems there. And then the other one was the Ficus lyrata standard.
Yeah.
So this one was not enough water, and the low humidity in our house, especially in the winter, had a huge effect on these ficus.
Yeah.
I have learned that more in the last while, that ficus are more susceptible to low humidity levels.
Yeah.
They're a bit more of a finicky plant than people think of.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, look that one up.
Lyrata standards, yeah. So it's got the stalk at the bottom, and then the full head of the plant up top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Okay.
it must be to do with the temperature in your home too, like right now, because we have one at our house and it is like thriving. So big part of it.
Yeah, like there were also times where this didn't get watered as often,
Yeah.
or as often as it should have. So it just went through that time of not being happy, really.
For sure. Okay, let's go on to plants that are surviving, meaning they're doing okay. We're keeping them alive. I can get started with this one. So one was a ZZ plant. Yeah. Oh.
Haha.
Sad plant. There we go. All right. Yeah. So I had a ZZ plant, and I had it in, I don't know, direct sunlight. It was right by the window, and it was living for a long time. It was doing well, but then the base of the stalks, so some of the bases of them started to go like mushy, and I feel like it started to not need as much water as I was giving it. So one half of the pot, so if you just take a look at the pot, like let's say, yeah, sure, one of those, one half of that pot, basically the bases of those strips of the ZZ was going bad. So I was taking them out. They were basically falling out. And then half the pot was there and half the pot was literally empty and it looked ugly, and I ended up just throwing it out in the end.
Yeah, that's just too much water.
Yeah, it was just too much water in the end. And I think I got into a schedule of it, but I don't think that the ZZ actually needed as much water as I was giving it.
So. Nowhere near that, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, I'll give you my next one. Succulent. Which succulents are supposed to be so easy to take care of, but I overwatered it for sure, and it just went.
Which one did you have? Do you remember?
The purple one with the big leaves, the one that is growing freely in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know which one I'm talking about? Yes. So I had the Echeveria, that's right. Yeah, I had one of those. I just gave it too much water, period, which is like the most classic thing to do with the Sansevieria, I'm sure. Echeveria.
It's too much water. Too much water, and that's a back-to-back too much water on a couple of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's reasonable, but you have to know that.
How often would you water an Echeveria?
Like you could probably get away with once a month.
Yeah, and you only give it a little bit, right?
They are native to Africa. Like when we get these cuttings in, when we will get these into the greenhouse, all of the boxes are from Uganda or Kenya or some of those other places where they grow much more freely. Now these are places that they have the farms there, so it's a little bit more advantageous for them to have a farm in that location.
Yeah.
But they also have it there because the plants grow very easily there.
Yeah.
In that spot. For
sure. And I feel like for a plant like this, if you're watering it once a month, you almost do just need to have it in a schedule somewhere because it's easy to forget when you watered it last. And that's what happened to me. I think I was just like, oh, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, and then you just kind of water it just in case.
Yeah.
Which is where the downfall of this could be.
And there's that level of maybe just being a little bit more lazy, where you don't want to take the plant out and look at the soil. You just say, you know what, I'm watering everything else. I'm just going to water this at the same time.
Totally.
And then after a little while,
I mean, I'm going to take it one step further than that, though. I find that succulents often are put in one of those really nice pots, and then you put the rocks, you plant the succulent in there, you put cool little rocks around it, so you can't necessarily take it out and check the roots. And the tricky thing is, if you're picking it up, you're picking up a heavy ceramic pot. So you're like, I think it's okay. I'm not really sure. That's when it can get really tricky too. But that's where you kind of need a schedule of okay, I watered this 2 weeks ago. I'm not watering it again.
If you have a dish garden, it's going to be very hard.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. You do your next one.
Okay. So I have ZZ as well, but we already did that one. Yeah. I'll do Christmas cactus. So this is doing okay. And I think that this is because we got it in as a plug and then put it into just like a 10-inch pot. This was a cutting taken off of something else that we already had, an older plant, and just really rooted for fun. Like it wasn't part of a program that we were selling. We just did this because it was sitting around. It's doing okay. It's not thriving because it's not getting enough light, and it's kind of in the corner of a bathroom.
Okay.
That's where it fit as far as the house layout goes, but to make that plant happy, it's not in the right spot.
No. We have a Christmas cactus as well, and it is all like, it's a very big plant. It's massive, actually. We've had it for years, but when it blooms, you only get a couple blooms. It just doesn't get enough light. So it's a surviving plant. Like, it looks good, but I'm looking at some of these photos and it does not look the same as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, so we have Dieffenbachia compacta.
Is there like a layman's term name for that plant? Like,
Potentially. I don't know what
dumb cane. I can see it there.
Dumb cane. Yeah, I guess that's the layman's term. I don't know, because when you're ordering it, that's not like when you're ordering it.
Yeah.
Like everything on both ends of me, as far as our suppliers and then our customers, you refer to it in its Latin name.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
The end consumer that, like, as you just said, can you give me an easier way of saying this?
It's like a snake plant being a Sansevieria.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's the same kind of thing. This is doing okay. Similar situation. It's sitting on a shelf on the wall, pretty high up. It's not in a great spot to get much light, but that's where it fits as far as the house layout goes.
Yeah.
So it's stretching a lot. Like, it's not staying in it's in a 4-inch pot, so it's not staying in the right size. But we've had it for a few years. It's still alive. It's doing okay, but I don't put it as doing great because it's stretching. It's getting too big, too lanky.
Yeah. You know, this make me think we need to do an episode just on like low light and high light level plants, so that when you're finding a plant for a certain space, you kind of can be like, oh, okay, we've listed a bunch of low light plants that'll work in a bathroom. You know? Yep. Awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, so spider plant. This one's easy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've seen these before. Spider plants. Yeah, but very, very simple. These actually came from, this is the first time that Monica was talking to me about plants, and I don't know how it came up, but she was talking about like propagating them. No, she wanted to buy one of these from Walmart.
Oh.
That's what it was. She said, I saw this in Walmart and I wanted to buy it. And I said, don't you dare. Like, do you know what I do for a living? And then she said, okay, well, bring me home one. I said, better yet, how about you grow your own? So I went to the greenhouse, got a spider plant, saw that it was, shooting some of those air roots that it's got, brought home a couple of cuttings, brought home a 4-inch pot, and she rooted it right there in the house. Super easy. Watered it once in a while. The reason that it's doing okay now is because it once again got put up on a higher shelf and neglected, forgot about.
No sunlight. Yeah, there we go.
Not as much light, being watered every once in a while. That's where it just fell into a problem.
Okay.
Last one I have on this list is alocasia. No, I have whitebird.
Oh yeah.
So that's funny. If you're only listening, I just searched whitebird and then whitebirds just showed up. Whitebird, birds of paradise. We have one of these. It's actually variegated, so it's white and green. We saw this. We were seeding a whole bunch of them, and then we were about to pot them for a spring production. And I saw this in one of the trays, and so I just scooped that one, put it into a 10-inch pot. It's only one plant in a 10-inch pot, but it's variegated, so I thought, it's kind of cool. It's not doing as well because it didn't get enough time in the greenhouse to really root out and be set and do very well. Like, it is staying at certain size, which is the goal. When you get a whitebird in the house, like, that's kind of what you want. It's not getting huge, but it's also just like staying its spot, its size. It's not putting on a whole much more growth, like maybe a leaf or two here and there, but not getting a lot taller.
If someone might have done the same thing as you, obviously they don't have access to a greenhouse to put it, so it's like, okay, wait for the summer. If you're in Canada, wait for the summer and put in some of that direct sunlight so that it can really start to root. Is that what you would suggest?
I wouldn't say direct sunlight. I would say closer to a window and fertilize it
Okay.
and give it all the nutrients that it needs to really go. Now, we did this in last summer. I brought it into the house.
Okay.
So maybe through this coming spring, it's going to do, it'll put on that growth that we're looking for.
Look, and it'll get better. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, now we're gonna end on a high note. I love this. Plants that are surviving. So we already looked this one up, but for me, actually, I have a Ficus lyrata standard, and mine started to go a little downhill. I lost a lot of leaves at the beginning, but we've talked about that in other episodes where that's pretty normal when you get a plant. It's in shock. It's going to lose some of those bottom leaves. But since then, like a lot of my leaves are actually going brown too at one point, which is scary. But since then, my tree hasn't had necessarily a lot of new growth, but it hasn't lost any leaves. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and I've had it for almost 5 years now. So the tree is doing pretty much as well as I think it can be, and it's not like that one that I could see that girl holding on to. It's not quite like that, but it is thriving. And we also have one in the living room, and it is continuously growing. That one is going to be a jungle in 5-10 years if we continue to keep it. But that's one that's definitely thriving for me. We can go back and forth. What's one that you want to talk about?
Okay. I will say, so this is a little bit different. I'll say a 4-inch ZZ. So we have a 4-inch ZZ instead of like the larger sizes, smaller size. Reason it's doing well is because it is on the right watering schedule. Everything's getting watered at the same time on the same schedule, so it's on the right watering schedule with everything else. Maybe once a week, only a little bit, and it's also one of those plants that I keep saying like are on a shelf up top, sitting somewhere, so it keeps being forgotten about.
Yeah.
And because it's forgotten about and it's warm up there, it's doing really well. It's not stretching too bad. It's soaking up all the water. It's not having any diseases, so it's doing pretty well.
Okay, I love that. We don't need to look that one up. I think we know what a ZZ is. The other one I have on here is actually a Ficus bambino. So maybe we can look that up just so that we can. But a Ficus bambino is essentially a Ficus mini, like a baby one. I actually have this bambino in the base. It's not planted in the base. It's just in its regular pot of my Ficus lyrata standard. So the two of them are side by side. And I find that, yeah, it's grown a little bit. I'm not expecting, it hasn't been shooting up. I don't want it to grow anymore. I don't have enough space for that, but it's been thriving and it looks really good too. But
it won't get really, really big because of the genetics that it has. Like you can make it stretch and get it taller, but it's not, the genetics are made to put it into a small pot.
Yeah.
This is one that's like made for a 6-inch or a 4-inch.
Yeah.
Or some of those smaller things. It's better for the grower because on the grower side, if you have a regular ficus and you're trying to grow it in a 6-inch pot, you've got like a 2-3 week window to sell that plant.
Yeah.
Because eventually, if you don't sell it in the 2 or 3 weeks, it's just going to continue growing and get way too tall.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
So with a Ficus bambino, it's made to be smaller. So you put it into that 6-inch, it gets to the right size, and now you've got 2 months to sell it.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it did get tall enough that I needed to put a stick and attach the stick to it. So I just put like mini clips and I clipped the stem onto the little like stake. Yeah, basically that I put it on. But other than that, yeah, I love that plant. It's been doing really well too.
Awesome. Okay, I have Sansevieria zeylanica.
Oh, I had Sansevieria, but not that fancy.
Okay, that would be close enough. I'm sure that I spelt that wrong, but yeah. So Sansevieria zeylanica, very similar. You treat it the same way as you do a Lioneti. The only difference with zeylanica is it's darker. Sometimes it is confused with black gold, Sansevieria black gold, but the black gold has more of like a yellowish around the outside of each stem, and it does well because it's neglected. It doesn't need a lot of humidity. It's actually perfect for our house.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like low humidity, relatively neglected. It's sitting in a spot where it gets direct sunlight right out the window. You know, everything in there is perfect for it. It's completely filled the pot. Really happy plant.
Yeah, Sansevieria love neglect, which is a great plant for if you're gonna forget to water it. I have a philodendron here. If you want to look that one up, okay. I had a 6-inch philodendron. So I actually had a philodendron. Do you remember which kind I had? Yeah, anyways, I had a philodendron and I had it on a shelf above my desk, and it had been growing so much that the
Mhm.
sorry, still thinking about it.
I
But the
am.
leaves started to go, and they started to go over the shelf, which was I thought was really cool. However, philodendrons, I don't know what the correct term is, but they sweat, and so it started to drip onto my desk. And at first, I thought I was losing my mind, but it was actually dripping onto my computer and onto my keyboard. So I actually had to move it to a different room. But it continues to grow. It is a long, like it's growing long. It's kind of like almost trailing. I know it's not
Mhm.
supposed to, but
It's not like a Birkin. It's a
it's not variegated.
okay. It's
Yeah,
similar to a philo moonlight.
it's very similar to this one. Yeah, so it started to
No,
grow.
you know what it is? It's an
That's what it is. Imperial philodendron,
is it an imperial red?
not a red.
Okay, well, very
Anyways.
similar to this type of shape. You know,
Yeah.
the philodendron family is enormous. So
Yeah.
just saying a philo is like it just opens it all the way up. But yeah, this might give people a little bit more of an understanding of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, they do sweat.
Yeah, it just grew really big, and then it started to flop over, and then it sweat all over the desk.
Mhm.
So make note of that if you see it starting to flop over. But
Now,
they do sweat.
I have a philodendron imperial red that's doing pretty well. The only difference is ours is on a stake, and it's a variety. It's a strain that stretches a little bit more,
Mhm.
so it's made to grow up the trellis
Okay.
and continue growing higher and higher. If it gets too tall, you're supposed to just pinch it,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't want to pinch it. We wanted to keep leaving it, so it's grown all the way up. It's wrapped around something else, like
Yeah.
it's kind of looking like a pothos at this time. By the way, it's so long and stretchy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's done well for us as well.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That's pretty much. I actually wrote an outdoor plant on here, and you took my
That doesn't
Sansevieria,
count.
so it
Nope.
doesn't count.
Okay, I have Mini Monstera on the list. It does pretty well. This is a variety we actually did in the greenhouse as mainly a test just to see how they would do. And it's the same thing as the Ficus Bambino, where it's made for a smaller pot.
Mhm.
So it'll fit really well into a 6-inch or 4-inch, somewhere like that. We have it growing up the outside of a stake. Honestly, overall, doing pretty well in the house, kind of holding its own, maybe a little bit better. The leaves are different from a regular Monstera that you're going to see, that you're going to be used to.
Because they're littler, right?
They're littler and they have more of a pointed shape
Mm-hmm.
to them, but they still have the same split leaf habit that
Yeah.
you're going to see in a regular Monstera.
Yeah, I just wanted to add like an opposite to this because I know you had a mini Monstera that's working.
Mhm.
We have a mini Monstera at the cottage, and it was basically just not warm enough inside, no sunlight. We thought maybe we could keep it over the winter, and it died pretty quickly, but it was just way too cold for it. The Monstera was not happy enough there.
Alocasia Poly is the last one.
Yep.
That has done pretty well. It was kind of a leftover from the spring one year, and we brought it back. Just threw it up. It's one of those ones that are sitting on top of on top of the fridge. Actually, that's where it's sitting, and it's pretty happy. It throws on a bunch more leaves here and there. So overall, he's not upset.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing that I have here. I think that's everything that I have. That's everything that you have.
Yeah.
Now, if we were being more diligent,
Yeah.
let's say that we put ourselves in the shoes of some of the listeners and say, okay, we're paying for these plants.
Yeah.
We want to make our home into a jungle. We really want to be taking care of everything. Like, what could we do better?
Yeah.
I've got a few things.
Yeah.
Number one, more consistent temperature.
For sure.
Specifically, that's for like our house.
Yeah.
I think with your place, it's a little bit different. Your room's going to be a little bit more moderate, but at our place, we could have a more consistent temperature. The plants would like that more. It would have less waves.
Well, I would just say the difference between your place and my place in that case would be me putting out those plants that need that more heat into a warmer area. Because like my room just isn't as warm, or some of the rooms in the home aren't as warm. So just being considerate of that. And if that's the case, then to have plants that are okay without the high temperatures.
Yeah. Higher humidity in the winter.
Yeah.
That would do well. Even if you could add like a humidifier to that spot, doing something to really help these plants out would help. And maybe what that means is, okay, if we were going to do that, you take all your plants into one room and then you try to have a humidifier in that room.
Can you miss the plant? I've seen that before too. Like
you could miss them. You could miss them. You could be a little bit more diligent on that.
Mm-hmm.
A better watering schedule.
For sure.
being on top of it. Maybe it's twice a week. Maybe it's less, but it's twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Or not being lazy and actually taking the plant out of the pot, really checking to see how much water it has, like making sure that it really needs what you're giving it.
Yep.
Integrating fertilizer. The plants would do way better with fertilizer. They would, we don't really give them much nutrients, so they would like that as well.
Give them more plant food, basically, for sure.
Last thing, grow lights. So I complained about some that are stretching here and there, or that aren't doing as well in the winter. That might be in the wrong spot in the house because of the layout. So grow lights would help with that.
Mm-hmm.
They would especially assist with some of the smaller ones or the stretchy ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Love that. Yeah.
Any other ideas? Any other thoughts on that?
No, I think that yeah, I like the ones that you covered. I think that the watering schedule is a huge one, and if it's like your first step or something that you want to just like, what's something low hanging fruit that I could try 1st? I would say watering schedule. Just make sure you have it written down and you know how much you're giving it and at what time. I think that would be like a great first step.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, guys, if you listen to this and you thought, hey, I have a comment on this, or I think that, you might be making this mistake, let us know. Head over to plantcare.club. Let us know what you've had success with and what you haven't. We would love to hear from you and to see where you stack your plants. I'm sure that there are some people that have some crazy big lists.
Oh, yeah.
Some crazy big. And part of this, too, is to see, hey, even though we spend all day in a greenhouse or we work with plants all the time, does not mean that we've got everything figured out. Like, plants are hard to take care of.
Yeah, and I feel like it's changing all the time. So it's something that we're always continuously learning.
Absolutely. Okay, plantcare.club. Head over there, ask us questions, and check out the blogs and everything else we have there.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you again soon.
Bye.